Hey everyone, what's up? What's going on? My name's Joe, and you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The now bi-monthly Drunk Movie Review podcast. Much like last week, we have no new ads or announcements, so let's just jump right into the review. This week we're going to be reviewing Captain Marvel. Enjoy. Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring two guys getting slam-a-lama ding-donged and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you to Scott Hatch on Facebook for that synonym suggestion, which is among my favorites. Slam-a-lama ding-dong. Nice NBA Jam reference there.
Is that what that is?
I think that's one of the it might have been outside of NBA Jam. That might have been like a famous catchphrase from, I want to say it's Marv Albert is the announcer. But that's definitely one of the phrases that gets said in a NBA Jam when you do a slam-a-lama ding-dong dunk. Slam-a-lama ding-dong.
I never had that game.
Or I think it's Ram-a-lama ding-dong in NBA
okay.
Jam rather, but now it's Slam-a-lama to be talking about drinking.
That makes sense.
He's heating up.
Yeah, I've only ever
from downtown.
I've only ever played that in Barcade.
Oh, I love that game. So good. Anyway, what are we drinking this week?
Well, I'm having a Tecate Light.
Ooh.
It's like Tecate, but it's a little light. It's actually not great.
I was about to say we've had that on the podcast before, but we haven't had Tecate Light.
Oh, it's a blue can, Mike. It's not red.
Oh, my mistake. So I'm drinking some more from that Victory beer pack I had last week.
Jesus.
Well, it has 5
How long
different
is that
beer.
going to last?
I don't really drink that much during the week anymore. Really only when we record this podcast. Which says a lot. But it had like 5 different beers. So I haven't on the podcast drank 3 of the other ones. It started out drinking. They have one called Sour Monkey, and I took one sip, and I was like, I'm not drinking that for 2 hours.
Right.
So luckily, my girlfriend Rowan is a pretty big fan of sour beers, so I gave that to her. So now I'm drinking Hop Devil IPA.
Okay.
Which is I feel like a staple of like the IPA community.
Oh,
it's definitely one of those like early classics of IPA. So I've had that before. It's pretty good, very hoppy. And then I'm going to break into Victory's Prima Pills, which just looks like a crappy light beer artwork. It's just funny. Like all their other artwork is pretty intricate and looks like craft beer. Mm-hmm. And then Prima Pills looks like it's made to compete with like PBR or
right.
Keystone Light or something like that. But we'll see. That's that. Oh boy, here we are.
Yeah, back on the good old Skype.
Back in the tree. Hopefully the last one for a while. I think we're going to get back into the swing of actual recording.
Yeah, definitely.
For our next batch of episodes, so you can look forward to some better audio quality and hopefully get some guests back on this podcast in case you guys are getting sick of me and Joe.
Just hearing us.
It's been a while.
It has. Especially ever since we switching to every other week has been weird.
Yeah.
I just all of a sudden I feel like I don't know. I felt like everyone this past weekend saw like us, and I was just kind of like, This is what it's like. What it's like.
We'll review that for another couple weeks.
Yeah, this is what it's like not having to see movies that frequently.
Yeah,
Strange.
not having to like rush to see everything on opening night.
Oh yeah,
squeeze your ass in between a bunch of people in the seats. It's nice. It's nice being an average person again. But this week we're reviewing Captain Marvel. Somewhat current. It's out. Still making the bucks. I saw a bunch of people in my theater when I saw it. So
oh, yeah?
We're not totally irrelevant yet. But Joe, do you want to read that IMDb description? Then I'll get into some mic notes, and then we'll hop right into this film.
Yeah, sure. Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races.
I have to say, I feel like I don't know if it's just the Marvel team being like on top of their shit now, as opposed to like other movie studios, but
right.
Like that description is has on like every single, like their Wikipedia, it's on their Rotten Tomatoes, it's on their IMDb, like everything where there's an opportunity to put that synopsis in there. That's like the exact wording and phrasing on every website.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that isn't some just like
user submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think this is what it was about. Like, it seems like Marvel has like a team that's like, all right, you do Rotten Tomatoes, I'll do Wikipedia. You got IMDb, you got Facebook, you got whatever.
Right. We'll all copy and paste the same thing.
Yeah.
To make it.
Or really just one guy for an hour.
That's one guy talking to himself.
AKA, it's not that hard and other studios should get on top of it. But anyway. Yeah. Captain Marvel is the 21st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's part of the Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Captain Marvel is based on the Marvel comic book character Carol Danvers. But there's a little bit of confusion around the Captain Marvel name. I'm just going to go over that real quickly because I thought it was pretty interesting. So Captain Marvel was first published in the 1930s by Fawcett Comics, except it was the costumed adult alter ego of teenager Billy Batson, summoned when Billy says the word Shazam. And it was actually the most popular comic book character of the 1940s until DC Comics sued Fawcett around the similarities to Superman, basically because it's a muscular man in tights with a cape and superpowers. And then the two companies ended up settling, and as part of that settlement, Fawcett Comics ceased publication on Captain Marvel. So DC just totally stopped that character. And then later on, DC Comics bought Fawcett Comics, and they went to publish Captain Marvel again. But in the time between Fawcett ceasing publication and then the actual Marvel Comics was created, and they copyrighted a character by the name of Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers. So then DC Comics had to rename Captain Marvel to Shazam, and then now, coincidentally, this year, the Shazam movie is also coming out.
Oh, that's
same year
weird.
as Captain Marvel came out. Yeah, kind of serendipitous how that worked out. I just thought that was kind of a funny thing where you have like someone who's not even DC and Marvel makes Captain Marvel. DC tries to like big brother them and force them out of existence, pretty much succeeds, buys the character, and then they have to change the name anyway because Marvel in the 60s just kind of slid in like, hey, here's our character.
So there's 2 Captain Marvel movies coming out this year?
Yeah.
Nice.
So Captain Marvel was written and directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. They're a writer-director duo. They've previously written and directed Half Nelson, Sugar, It's a Kind of a Funny Story, Mississippi Grind, and episodes of The Affair and Billions, among a few other TV shows. And the only other sort of thing of note was the whole Rotten Tomatoes thing with this movie, where this movie basically made Rotten Tomatoes change their policy. Well, I don't know if they made them, but Rotten Tomatoes felt compelled to change their policy so that they now prevent users from reviewing unreleased films because Trolls had bombed the film's audience score before it had even premiered. Like I think it was down to like 28% or something like that before the movie even came out. And then even with that, they like somehow managed to the movie premieres, and by 8 a.m. on premiere day, the movie has 58,000 reviews from users for an audience score of 33%. And apparently that was more reviews than Infinity War got during its entire theatrical run on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes went on to blame this on a bug and then they brought the ratings down to 7,000 for an audience score of 35%. But I feel like that was pretty clearly Trolls going to work on that, because there was just this whole sort of anti-Captain Marvel campaign around the like perceived feminism of the movie before it had even really come out.
Right.
Which was kind of disgusting. But didn't really slow Captain Marvel down. It went on to currently it's made $914.6 million at the box office. It's opening, I think the worldwide opening was like 400 something million.
Mm-hmm.
Against a total budget, including advertising, estimated of 300 million. So, not bad.
Yeah.
And it's the highest grossing film of 2019 so far. Although we have a bunch of movies coming out this year, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Right.
But yeah, that's about all I got. We can start marveling at Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and it's also Marvel. I'm sure it'll float at the top. Perhaps maybe the entire year. Yeah, I was kind of, I don't know. I felt like really all over the place about this whole Rotten Tomatoes thing, where it's like they had to shut down like the pre-release ratings and comments, right? Or whatever that feature was.
They didn't shut them down. I think they did it so that it doesn't show up as like a percentage, like it's not a score.
Okay.
You can just because you can say whether you want to see a movie or you're not excited to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now it just shows the amount of people who want to see a movie rather than like,
right.
Oh, like only 33% of viewers are excited for this movie.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, it got like caught up in so much just like really dumb articles that I just kept reading by like journalists who just don't understand how Rotten Tomatoes works, you know, like I got so caught up in that muck. I don't know. At first I was I really had to do some like, I'm not really on Twitter. So I was kind of like, who is like downvoting this? I mean, I know trolls exist, and like, I also kind of, part of me has to be like, you know, when you take on these gigantic, franchises like Disney has, I think you kind of have to expect things like this. I don't know, you know, it's no excuse, but it's also like I didn't know like anybody that was really like, oh man, I don't want to see this movie because it's a woman. Like, it's kind of like, that just seems like so old, like such old news. Like, Marvel is so late in the game with like feminism. We've gone through 20 something white guys. Like, it almost didn't make sense for there to be trolls. I like, in my own like, in the privacy of my own thoughts, or like I even said this to somebody, I was kind of like, is this kind of just like a ploy kind of for like Marvel to be like, you know, the bad men don't want you to see Captain Marvel. Like, look at all these trolls. Like, you know, like, It was kind of mind-boggling. It was just that I didn't totally understand it. I don't know. And then the Red Letter Media goes like a little into it, where it's just kind of like, then I know there's like a bunch of neckbeards who like make a video every day about like why you shouldn't see it or whatever. But then there's also like, it kind of sounds off, it like makes like the opposite side sound off, or there's a bunch of like Twitter people who like are just like, they kind of turn this into like a pro-feminism thing, and it's, I don't know, there's a really funny quote that Jay says. He's like, eat the multi-billion-dollar corporate slop and pretend it's social justice, you fucking weirdos. Like, it's just like, it's so like, okay, I guess.
There's definitely people out there, but I mean, like all things, it gets overblown by social media. You know, it's like the Momo thing or the Tide Pods thing. Like, you know, how many people are like actually out there percentage wise, like,
oh right, yeah,
angry that they're having a female fronted superhero movie. But I did see a few, but it was mostly, yeah, like you're saying, like it was on Twitter, and it would be, you know, people from the left reblogging like an ignorant tweet to sort of bash it and tear it apart.
It's like Twitter convincing itself that this corporate product is like a feminist cause. And it's like, no, man. Like, you're just fucking... You're paying the corporation that has fucking put out like 20 white dudes and one black guy before this. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I also get it. I mean, representation is 100% a thing.
100%, but they're the last ones to do it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from, where I was also a little surprised about the whole Rotten Tomatoes thing, because I was like, Wonder Woman already came out, and it
and there was
blew up at the box office.
No problem, really. Yeah.
Like, are the neckbeards just going to do this every time there's a female-fronted superhero movie? Like, are there not allowed to be any?
Yeah, it was just kind of weird how, like, it reminded me of, like, when the most recent Star Wars, not Solo, what was the one before that?
Last Jedi.
Yeah, The Last Jedi. But there was, like, this kind of, like, oh, it's, I don't know, like, all of a sudden, like, people were upset about, like, a female front, like, in Star Wars when there had already been a movie, and it was like, oh, a whole bunch of trolls don't like this, because it was just, like, it was so strange. I don't know. And it was just kind of like, well, I don't know. I feel like people were also misconstruing, like, oh, you know, it's not just because of this. I don't know. It's just... It's a strange landscape to navigate. I can't completely wrap my mind around it, you know. And then there's obviously, like, Red Letter Media doesn't always handle, like, I feel like they really, like, they've definitely progressed a lot. Like, some of the stuff they said about, like, the all-female Ghostbusters was kind of like, ugh, guys, no. But, like, they love to bring up, and again, they love to bring up, like, whenever people start, like, charities, and it was just, like, charities that paid for, like, little girls to go see Captain Marvel. It's like, you guys are just, buy them a fucking house, or clothes, or something. You guys are just paying Disney, who, like, again, we talked about this during... Black Panther. It's kind of like Disney's not really making, like, hey, you know, and we're gonna donate to this charity that supports African Americans or whatever. It's just kind of like, I don't know, I think we'll funnel that into Endgame and, like, our paychecks. I don't know, it's just it's weird, and it's just and then, like, I just saw, like, Brie Larson even kind of got, like, very caught up in, like, the virtue signaling and everything, and I was just like, ugh, come on, Brie. Like, I like you. Like, it just...
Well, I mean, it's her movie, so, like, even if she wants to do it selfishly...
Right.
You know, like, I mean, she's got to promote the movie. Everyone's got to take an angle for it.
Most definitely. And it's like...
I'm not going to fault anyone involved with the movie for it. I can more take the side of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Of, like, yeah, like, because I think there was that, I think it was GoFundMe did a fundraiser. The one you were saying where they raised a bunch of money for bringing, like, area local girls to see the premiere of the movie. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's probably better uses of, you know, donation. I think it was like $50,000, something like that. Like, we could probably think of a better use for that money besides paying Disney to put out this movie too late.
Yeah. And then...
in their defense, they were working on it since 2013.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I don't know how... I'm sure they were also working on Wonder Woman for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this movie, essentially... I mean, we've already had Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I feel like when we left off on Infinity War, did they only have one post-credits scene after that movie?
After Infinity War?
Yeah.
Were there any?
Yeah, there was one that sets up this movie, kind of, where Nick Fury and Robin Scherbatsky disintegrate, but not before Nick Fury sends a message on his beeper.
For some reason, I thought that was just in the actual movie itself.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's a post-credits
that makes more
scene.
sense.
Yeah, so he has, like, a custom beeper with, like, her logo, and then we also see that in this movie. So he's presumably carried it around for 20-something years. All I could think of was like, God, this entire world and our galaxy has been in trouble for like 20 something movies, like, and now he's gonna use it.
Yeah.
It was just such a bizarre.
It's also funny that he just like has it wherever he goes. It's like, all right, gotta get my phone, wallet, keys, Captain Marvel peeper.
He goes back to the house to get it. Oh God, you never know. You never. He sees like fucking New York City being like pulverized in the first Avengers movie. He's like,
shit, I left it at home.
He's like, it's not quite to that scale yet. I feel wrong using it now. Man. Also, I gotta say, again, just kind of rattling off some specifics that are kind of peripheral to the actual movie, but just Marvel still has the fucking best de-aging technology in the game.
Hell yeah.
They really step it up, having like Samuel L. Jackson as a main character in the entire film, like as like a younger Samuel L. Jackson. And it's like almost seamless until you see him run, and then you're like, oh God, that's a 70-year-old man. He just looks so fucking wacky. Clark Greggs isn't as great though. Yeah.
Their de-aging techniques fail to work on bringing Stan Lee back from the dead. Still looks dead. You saw you picked up on that scene, right? That was fucking faked.
Oh no, right? I didn't. I thought that was real.
It's uncanny.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just.
I thought they filmed a bunch of those in advance. So have they already run out of them, or do they not have one like
they might not have just
in the chamber
for this one? Let me see if I can
Endgame?
find confirmation on that. But like it seemed real obvious to me in the theater. I like audibly groaned. I was like, oh no.
Oh, see, because he even has like the Mallrats script up in front of his face, and I was like, oh, is this how we're doing all the Stan Lee cameos now, where like he kind of has like an obscured face, and then he brought it down. I could have sworn that was him.
Let's see how Captain Marvel pays tribute to the late great Stan Lee. Blah 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 blah.
That was kind of nice though, that opening kind of Marvel 2 where they just have all the pictures of him. Even though I feel like we just saw Into the Spider-Verse or whatever, which was the most like recent one after Stan Lee died. So this one, I don't know. Even though that wasn't like a huge Marvel movie, I guess they had to do it for Captain Marvel.
So I don't know if they. Yeah, this article doesn't mention. It looked to me like Princess Leia in the end of Rogue One.
Really? See, I think it's him. I do. I 100%.
I don't know why it would look so weird then. The only thing I can think of, because here in the article they're saying they changed the cameo after his death.
Okay.
But they changed her reaction to it. Like I think she, totally like laughs at him,
right,
in the original take, and it sounds like she just has like kind of like a knowing smile. Yes,
I noticed that definitely. That was an after the fact thing. But also for the Samuel L. Jackson one, they don't make it easy on themselves either. They really shoot in like a variety of lighting, and everything seems to come out great.
Sorry, I'm really trying to figure this out because it was so cringy to me.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it looked like his like face wasn't even like staying straight on his like clearly like they filmed someone else and then tried to superimpose his face on it, and it just looked like it was like kind of like it looked like someone wearing like
Superman's like upper lip or something.
Snapchat filter, like a Stan Lee Snapchat filter. I'm not gonna find it. I'll have to look it up after we're done recording.
Definitely.
Or if someone who's listening to this is familiar with what exactly went on with that, please comment below. But it looked weird to me. Because it didn't look like Samuel L. Jackson's one looked. Right. I mean, unless they were trying to maybe they were de-aging the footage of Stan Lee.
Yeah, that'd be. That wouldn't make sense either. Just because he's just this entity that.
Well, it's supposed to be like a reference to his Mallrats.
Right. Yeah, but I don't know. That would be weird to DH him.
It would also be weird to
almost definitely
CGI him after his death.
Oh yeah. I can't. Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally also possible. I would not be surprised if we
for
get
the sake
to
of
that
Marvel, I hope it was pre-filmed, even though that also still feels weird to me. That's less weird and disrespectful by a degree than let's just animate Stan Lee.
I just remember that being like a fun fact 2 or 3 years ago, where they were like, "We got the next 20 movies cameos covered, like no problem." And so, like, I think they have one for Endgame at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you would think they would have one for the bigger movies, but
right.
I didn't know. Like, I know that they were still working on aspects of the script as late as like 2016.
Right.
So, like, I don't is every Marvel movie from now on beholden to these like scenarios that they've plucked in there for Stan Lee cameos?
I have no idea.
Like, did that scene have to take place on a bus or a subway or whatever because of the cameo that was pre-filmed?
Right. I mean, I'm sure they do weirder things. It's a Marvel movie. I'm sure they've got like 20 contracts in the balance. Like every time they make a movie where they're like, all right, we gotta fucking do this.
He needs to make an appearance.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so maybe open, like Marvel or Guardians of the Galaxy 2 opens. Okay, so I guess a Dairy Queen's in the background. We gotta fucking put that in.
All the product placement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Captain Marvel has to drink Coke. I don't care if she's not thirsty.
He's not a Pepsi.
She fucking drinks it.
She's not a Pepsi girl. She would never.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Oh, gosh.
All right. Let's get into the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
So I thought the beginning of this movie started out real strange and weak.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like there was probably a much longer cut of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the places that they decided to trim the fat are probably in the beginning on what is it? Hala?
Mm-hmm.
Hala Kahiki. the Kree Empire's capital planet. Yeah, like it kind of just like starts like in media res in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, I think we open on like a dream that Carol Danvers is having, or as she is at that moment, what is she known as? Vers or Veers, rather.
Yeah.
And then she like wakes up, and we get like one quick establishing shot of the city. She's in this like room that we don't understand, wearing clothes that we don't understand. Like, they haven't established anything about this like entire race of creatures.
Dude, as soon as they did the establishing shot of the city, I was like, oh, please, God, don't do white guy Wakanda.
Okay.
don't do it, Marvel.
And then like she goes down to meet what's her commander's name?
Jude Law.
Jan Rog, according to Wikipedia. I don't remember ever hearing that said in the movie.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things I don't remember about this movie. I
They
feel
might
like
cut out all the lines where they actually say his name.
I feel like what's it called? Her friend Maria or whatever. I feel like they just had, even though that was like a 90s thing, like the necklace with the cursive kind of gold pendant or whatever necklace. I feel like they just had that like in plain sight, so you could be like, "Oh, that's who Maria is."
Oh,
like,
Maria,
just like
name
it's a
tag.
name tag. Yeah, because I don't remember anybody's name from this movie besides Nick Fury.
Yeah, so like she goes down to meet Jude Law, and they do their like little fight scene, and like it's all just moving too fast, and there's clearly a couple of like character establishing scenes that are just cut for time.
Yeah.
In the beginning of this, like we don't really totally have a sense of her character yet. You definitely want like one or two scenes before then, just to establish the whole scenario that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're like really rushing through things.
Oh yeah.
Like they're training for a little bit, and then they're talking about going to meet the Supreme Intelligence, and then we get some kind of like ham-fisted establishing of the situation. Why can I not? My writer's brain is just not here right now. What is the fucking... It starts with an E. What's the fucking word? Exposition. Yeah. There we go. Woohoo! Victory beer. Like on that train, they have some like real bad like exposition dialogue where they're like, oh, so why can't we see the Supreme Intelligence in their like true form? Like I get it. It's kind of like a tough concept to like get across in any other way besides just talking about it when you have two characters that are already established on this world.
Right.
Like we don't have someone who's like a fish out of water and we're like, oh, all right, well, I guess we'll explain to you what the Supreme Intelligence is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, although I guess Veers has also only been there for 6 years, but still, like she's going to meet with the Supreme Intelligence. I doubt she's asking about the Supreme Intelligence in such broad terms.
Right. Yeah.
on the way to meet it. So it's just, there's a lot going on and a lot missing in the beginning of this. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I kind of hope we don't spend a lot of time here on Hala. Like I was kind of looking forward to seeing Captain Marvel on Earth.
Yeah.
This kind of feel like in the beginning it kind of feels like it's going to be like a bad like Green Lantern type movie or something. Like I'm just like, oh, like I don't care about this alien race at all. Give me some humans and some Earth and stuff. But then I think it kind of takes a turn for like way to the better when they get like into just the action of this like undercover mission that they're on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Like they have some like cool members on the team. All like the equipment they're using is pretty cool, and I think they make it feel incredibly real, despite it being like these like crazy aliens on this crazy alien planet fighting these other crazy aliens.
Right.
There's something just like there's something like distinctly almost human about like the terminology and dialogue and tactics that they're using on the planet. Like it feels like alien like Black Hawk Down or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
yeah.
I don't know, like it was way cooler to see like an alien special ops mission than some of these like crazy, incredible, like all out galactic warfare that we see in some of these superhero movies.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes, like I'd definitely rather watch this action scene in the beginning than like something like the battle scenes in Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Or even like in like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, they have like a big like battle at like the climax of that movie that's just not really interesting to me at all. I don't know, something was just really cool about this. It felt like getting to watch like a spy action movie, but it was sci-fi and it was in the Marvel universe. It was a cool sequence.
Yeah. I don't know. It was enough for me. It
was fine.
It was. Listen, Mike, I'll gas you up while you're talking, but for me, no, yeah, it was fine. I think maybe the worst part of this movie is when, Vers is captured by the scroll.
Scrolls, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have this sequence that feels like forever. They're kind of like scrubbing through her YouTube video of a brain or memory.
I kind of thought that was cool.
Oh man, dude, they really lost me. I was just kind of like, because it's just kind of nonsense, and it's kind of like it almost seems like scenes that they had, and then they were like, but you know what, like kind of these developing sequences, like, oh, just her as a character or whatever. But I don't know, like all we kind of learn about her as a character is that she just like, she stands back up when she falls, oh, she stands back up when she falls. Like, kind of, it was just kind of like, okay. And then we also had, like, I love Ben Mendelsohn. I love him in, like, this character and everything. But just, like, the audio of him talking, like, nope, oh, I don't think this is it. I'm just, yeah, I don't know. And it's just, it's fucking, like, pure nonsense. Maybe it feels like...
I thought it worked because I think when, like I said, when the movie starts out, I'm kind of like, okay, like, we're getting, like, no exposition and then, like, some, like, clunky exposition for this, like, Kree version of Brie Larson's character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just seemed like we were kind of, like, thrust into it and we didn't really get to establish that. And I think when, like, this sequence starts is when I start to realize, like, oh, like, the movie's not about the Kree version of Captain Marvel. It's about the Earth version, Carol Danvers. And this is sort of the exposition. And I thought it was a much smoother way of getting exposition across than when they tried to, you know, explain the Kree version. You know, like, and these are things that do get tied up later on. Like, I don't think this is really a spoiler, but a lot of these scenes that he's scrubbing through show up in flashbacks later on during the climax to sort of set up their whole point during the climactic scene. And it is... I did kind of like that it was all sort of nonsense because it was like, it wasn't just watching her memories. It was like forcing her, like playing her mind like a video game and forcing her mind to go through the memories. Like he had to like keep talking to her and get her to focus on the things that he was trying to gain out of it.
Right.
Like I thought that was cool. Like, especially when like the Annette Bening character shows up and he keeps like, quote unquote rewinding, but really it's just kind of like making that scenario happen in Brie Larson's like memories.
Right.
And like, so like the Annette Bening character would come from like the other side and like you can see like Brie Larson like getting more confused and frustrated as that scene goes on. Like I thought that was kind of clever and cool and interesting. I can maybe agree that it went on a little bit too long. I didn't find it like painful to any degree because it was when I first started getting interested in that character. I was like, oh, okay, like now we're learning about her life on Earth, which is what the movie is perceivably going to be about. And he's trying to find out like a mystery. So like if the movie or if that scene is like a little bit of nonsense, that's okay to me because it sort of sets up what the mystery that we're looking for is and the answers that we're looking for as an audience at the same time that Captain Marvel is looking for them.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just not engaging for me. I was kind of like, it was the only part of the film I was like really struggling with, I guess. I don't know. Uh-huh. And then I think it's also just kind of this, it serves as like the core for this like whole non-linear structure that I didn't feel like, which I feel like could have worked. But kind of just, they made a bunch of like really strange decisions, like that being one of them, where we see her past and we see a lot of it. And then the rest of the movie is her trying to remember her past. But then we already know her past. So there's just literally no mystery, no tension. It's just, it would be like Memento, but like, you know everything already. Like, it's just like, it was just like kind of like, I don't know why we're doing it like this. It was just kind of like, I don't know. It felt just, it kind of just set the film off on the wrong foot for me. And it's like, it never really caught up after that. I mean, it definitely has some shining moments later, but yeah, I don't know. I
could see your point logically, but I don't know if I agree because I think that the film ends up providing a lot of twists later on that are not spoiled by the flashback at all, and they sort of start coming like 3/4 of the way through the movie.
I think it also has a lot to do with her character. I don't think I ever truly understand who this character is. I mean, as we get deeper into this film, she kind of just cycles through, and I think I don't think this is any fault of Brie Larson. I think maybe this is bad directing or bad writing. She's kind of like fish out of water, and then she's like smart aleck, and then she's stoic, and then she's kind of like she just like cycles through all these things, and I was just kind of like, who is she? You know, like she's kind of like running, you know, after she escapes this kind of like memory thing, and she's running around the spaceship kind of like as if she's just like an Earth human, just kind of like, could somebody fill me in on how the heck you get out of these things? No suggestions? And then she lands on Earth and she talks to like Samuel L. Jackson, like she's like, excuse me, sir, you've got a goober floober running around the doober doober on like your Earth right here. And then he says something and she's like, that's the first smart thing you said since you got up this morning. And I was just kind of like, who is this character? And then like that kind of
there definitely is like it just seems like a light switch going on when a line contains humor. She delivers it well, but it's like, it is kind of like night and day between her delivering any other line.
Right. This is definitely
movie. It could have used some smoothing over. It's not as seamless as like they didn't make the humor, whether it's the writing or maybe it is Brie Larson's performance. I mean, I think individually a lot of her scenes are great, but maybe, you know, kind of like a band looking at the way they create an album, like she didn't create a complete cohesive performance between a lot of these different moods she's taking on.
And
possibly.
I think, it feels like this kind of cobbled together character that's kind of like, well, she's like Star-Lord because, you know, it starts out in space and they have this space history, but like this, you know, also this history on Earth. And then it's, you know, it's also kind of like Tony Stark, where she's kind of like this smart aleck kind of guy. And then, you know, she's also like Thor, 'cause she's kind of like fish out of water when she lands on Earth. And it's just kind of like, I've seen all these characters before, and now they're kind of trying to pass it off as like one new character. And it was just kind of like, this is probably the most like forced humor I've ever seen in a Marvel movie. And I'm usually like very like okay with the humor that they do have in Marvel movies. Like I think a lot of it lands. Like I think that's part of Tony Stark's charm.
Yeah, I don't know that the problem was the humor. Like it didn't feel forced to me. It just felt like maybe that sort of attitude needed to be interlaced with the other moods. Because like if you look at like Guardians of the Galaxy, like Chris Pratt's character, he's a smart ass the entire movie, no matter what's going on, and he'll be irreverent when there's a serious moment happening, right. And you know, like there'll be a character playing opposite of him who's kind of playing like the straight in the scene, who will have to like pull him back to reality. They're like, no, focus. Like we're talking about something serious here, and only then will he sort of like take it more seriously. And she's not really that type of character. Like she can snap into serious mode very quickly, and there's no humor. Right. But then when any line that she's delivering that contains humor, she kind of switches into comedic Brie Larson, and it just feels like two different sides of a weird character, and not like, you know, embedded in who that character actually is.
I love Brie Larson.
Like the performances are not forced. It's just like we can kind of like smell it a mile away when we're like, oh, okay, like that doesn't really totally feel like how this character should be acting.
Right. And again, I do love Brie Larson, but I don't know. It almost doesn't feel like she's right for this role. Again, if it's not the writing and directing, I don't know. I think it works right along with maybe the not so great like writing or directing, or my gosh, I'm sure Marvel had their hand in this and was fucking everything up that they could, just because this film also mostly just feels like kind of a sales pitch for Marvel. Like a lot of the time it's just kind of like, yeah, like it nothing about this feels that creative really. But I don't know. I feel like it might have just been a bad casting choice as well. I
don't know if I want to. I don't think they knew who they wanted the character to be.
Right.
So I think that takes place before Brie. Because again, like I think
gotta get that name attached.
She delivers the humor fine, and I think she knocks it out of the park in the dramatic scenes. I think they needed a better sense of who this character truly is. Because I don't think I felt like I left the theater being like I can't think of a type of line that someone would say that I would be like, oh, that's so Captain Marvel. Whereas like you can think of like a million lines that like, you know, Star-Lord would say, or Deadpool would say, or Spider-Man would say, or Iron Man would say, and they're all different types of humor. for all 4 or 5 of those characters. Same thing with like Thor or Captain America. Like she doesn't feel as clearly defined as some of them. It unfortunately it feels like some of the definitions that she has are just tied to her gender.
Right. Yeah. So I saw this. I actually saw this opening night.
Oh, really? Is it packed?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And people were really excited for this movie too.
Have a bunch of little girls around you from GoFundMe.
Yes, and they were like, "Can somebody please buy me popcorn? I'm starving."
I haven't eaten in weeks, but thank you for taking me to the movie theater.
Does anyone know where a homeless shelter is?
Can someone give me a ride to school?
But I didn't. It definitely. It must. I don't know if it was just my audience, but like they kind of really checked out for a really long time. I'm talking about like they're pretty engaged at first, and then they kind of like peaked early when she fell through the roof, and then the camera zoomed out, and it was a blockbuster. People whistled and cheered and clapped at that part, but then it seemed like everyone fell asleep up until like a part near the end with a cat. And then people were back awake and kind of like laughing. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. It was just like, I don't think like any jokes between there really connected with them. And it didn't seem like a lot of this movie connected with them either. And I felt bad for them because like it wasn't going to connect with me. I wasn't really excited for this movie. This movie definitely surprised me in some ways, but I was just like, that sucks. You guys aren't here for a podcast, and you don't totally seem like you're enjoying this movie either. Mm-hmm. It felt just overall uneventful, like a Phase 1 Marvel film. It was just kind of like, I think I said this to our friends when I got out, where it was just kind of like, I don't know, man. It's kind of like, a part of me also feels bad for Marvel, where they have to keep introducing these characters, and they have to keep having these like, what's it called? These fucking, oh my god, now I'm having a total
origin stories.
Yeah, they have to keep pumping out these origin stories and pretending like they're completely different, but they're just all just good guy, bad guy, good guy win. Want to join team?
I'm not going to pretend that this movie reinvents the wheel by any stretch of the imagination. Mm-hmm. But I also just think I've seen so many fucking bad superhero movies or action movies. This just felt really polished in terms of entertainment value for me. Like I went into this not excited at all. Mm-hmm. Maybe only like marginally excited just because I really like Brie Larson as an actress. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I've never really been a huge Samuel Jackson fan. I feel like he's kind of a one-trick pony. And I really don't like him in the Nick Fury role. I've always thought that was like,
same.
One of the worst things about the Avengers series was Nick Fury's role in it, or like Agent Coulson too. Like, I think he's such a wet blanket that like fans go crazy for, and I'm like, okay, are we watching the same guy here?
Yeah.
He's got no personality, and that's kind of part of his character. Why are we getting so excited about it? So I just was not truly excited going into this, and I found myself pretty pleasantly surprised by it, and like just left the theater being like, that's what I want to go to the movies to see. For this type of movie, it's just like, a couple of laughs, some really cool visuals, some pretty cool action, and I want to feel inspired during the climax in some way. And yeah, like this doesn't invent any of that. It doesn't do any of it in a terribly original way, but it also doesn't feel derivative. It just feels like it's sort of playing a genre. There's a lot of times where you can watch a good horror movie and it's not going to reinvent the wheel either. But does it scare you? Then it's probably a pretty good horror movie. And that's how I kind of feel about this. Like, it's nothing crazy original, but it entertained me and it inspired me a little bit. And that means it's probably a pretty decent origin story.
Yeah, definitely. You want to get into spoilers?
Um,
Or do you have more to... Oh,
I'm just looking over the plot. I didn't have time to take specific notes. I'm just seeing if there's anything that we can talk about that's outside of spoilers.
okay.
I mean, we're 50 minutes in. We might as well just hop into spoilers.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't know. If you happen to have not seen Captain Marvel at this point and what we've said thus far interests you and you don't want to have the movie spoiled, you can pause the podcast right here because we're going to get into spoilers. I thought the, what's it called? I mean, even though, we kind of get these hints over the course of the movie, like Jude Law is on the phone or hologram, or I don't remember what they use with like Ronan.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of like already have him established as like a bad guy kind of in our brains. And even before that, there's...
Although I thought I thought that was pretty decently
definitely
hidden in that scene because they present him as like hiding something from Ronan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
like
true.
It seems like he's trying to protect Brie Larson's character in that scene. So like I didn't really, I don't know. I was talking to my girlfriend Rowan about this. How I feel like you and I watch movies in very different ways.
Your girlfriend Ronan?
My girlfriend
no!
Ronan.
She's a bad guy.
The Kree Warlord.
Yeah, she's not bad. She just wants to kill this. She just wants me to wipe out the Skrull population. And
as long as I bring in the Tesseract, everything will be okay.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Just how I think you and I watch movies in very different ways.
Oh yeah.
Where like, even though I definitely like think about how the cake is made when I'm watching a movie, I feel like I also tend to just like get caught up in what the directors want me to see. You know, like, or, you know, kind of like a magician performing a trick. Like I'm watching the hand while the hand behind his back is doing something else when I watch movies. Whereas I feel like you definitely very much watch a movie like, okay, what is this supposed to mean? What are they doing with this? And you're thinking a few steps ahead of where the audience is.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like you tend to spoil movies for yourself in that way, where you're like, well, there's no way that this is just a scene that I'm supposed to watch just to watch it. There's clearly something in it. So you watch that Ronin scene and you're like, well, he's a bad guy. I fucking called it already. Whereas like I'm focused on the hand, like doing backflips in front of me. And I'm like, oh, he's protecting Brie Larson. He's a great guy.
Right. Well, I think it's also the quality of the magician as well, you know? I think, like, I don't know, if you can kind of see the stage falling apart behind him, you're kind of like, oh, that's where the lady's like, or there's actually another woman in that other box, and he's not actually sawing this woman in half. But then also on top of that is,
but I mean, it's
a lot of their. Oh, go on, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, like the magician metaphor almost doesn't work because it's with movies like you kind of want the person to, like, you have to lay the groundwork so that when there is this sort of reveal at the end, you can go, oh, and that's how he did it. You know, it's like a magician who ends up actually telling you how he did it at the end of the trick. Right. You know, because like if it truly was like a complete like blindsided you surprise out of nowhere, then you'd be angry at the twist. So like a good twist has to sort of be established in a way that you're not totally paying attention to it, and then when it happens, you're like, oh yeah, he was a bad guy. Right,
you fill in the details.
Yeah.
And everything. They also ran, like, I don't know whether it was the trailer or the promo material, but I saw, like, other people kind of noticed this too, is, and I can't believe they ran it, like, not even in the movie, but, like, in these trailers and promo material for the movie, I think before it came out, because I saw it opening night, of that, like, one of the people on her, like, special ops team or whatever, the Kree black guy with the goatee, I thought he was, like, he's one of the most memorable characters in, like, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, that's how Guardians of the Galaxy opens, with that guy. And he's a Kree guy too, and they like kind of establish him as like a bad guy. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I didn't recognize him
and the
as the Guardians. I just recognize him as the guy from I think he's in Gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy who fights alongside I can't remember Russell Crowe's character's name in Gladiator. That's what I always recognize him from. I didn't remember that he was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
But I didn't like initially think like, oh, like you know, I didn't like put together like the plot, obviously.
Yeah,
that
you're not that much of a Marvel nerd.
Right, or just fucking I can't see into the future, you know, like it was just like I was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting, like Brie Larson's running with the Kree, like I'm sure that'll make for some like, you know, interesting banner during Endgame where the Guardians of the Galaxy are like, we hate those guys, and Brie Larson's like, those are my people, you know. Like just
I did recognize the Kree name when they started saying it in the beginning from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, but it was also,
and I guess
like,
that probably should have been a tip off because I was like, wait, weren't they the bad guys in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Right, and then also have Skrull been in the Marvel movies before this? I don't
know.
Think so, but I thought that was like also an interesting twist, just because, like, it was also something that didn't totally work for me in this movie, like that they were like these good guys, because like it just seems like it's written into their characters that they just have like all these bad qualities. And I know, like, I definitely know for a fact in the comics, they've only been, like, 100% just, like, fucking devious and, like, a ferocious, like warrior race. So, like, that, I mean, but I also kind of enjoy that, because then, like, the people who read, like, the comics are like, what? This is, like, these are good Skrull? Like, kind of, like, you know.
It kind of worked for me. I thought it was, like, this sort of, like, there's a few ways you can look at it. Like, it feels like partially like a just commentary on the world. Like, I remember like that when that switch happened, my mind, I don't even think there's really a suggestion of it, but your mind just naturally wanders to like the Iraq and Afghanistan wars.
Yeah.
And you're like, how we've kind of like demonized the people over there we're the bad guys. In a lot of those scenarios over there. So that was just kind of where like my mind went with that. And then I feel like it's also sort of like a commentary on like either just movies or video games in general, where we kind of just like view these different like races of aliens as like the bad guys. Just like, you know, just black and white. Like they're like, we couldn't be bad in the things that we're doing, even though we're like massacring them by the millions. Like I remember wasn't there some like, I can't remember if it was just a fan theory or if there was like evidence of it in the game, but I remember when we were big into Destiny, the video game, our former guest Dan Martin was also a big fan of it, and I think there was like it was either a fan theory or it was like something that was in some of the metadata of the game or something, but there was basically people suggesting that like the like Destiny characters in the game weren't actually the good people of that universe, and that I forget what the one race was, but they were like, it would be like saying like the Flood in Halo were the good guys, and like the Master Chief was the bad guy because he slaughtered like millions of them.
Right.
Like it made me think of that, just kind of like that, thinking of it in that different sort of way. Like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think you could also like, it's one of those things where like, I think if the twist maybe could have been better. Like, I feel like you can kind of like retroactively like poke holes in it, where it's just kind of like, you want them to be this like sympathetic race, but then like they've also just been like dying comedically like this entire movie, and they continue to die like comedically too, like one at the hands of like Jude Law and everything, when they leave one kind of as like a decoy behind on Earth, like when they go to the space station out in space and everything.
Was that comedic?
Kind of, or I don't know, but I mean,
he like assassinates him in cold blood.
Yeah, but
I wasn't laughing.
There's definitely like a corny joke in there where it's kind of like, me not know where she is, you know, like I mean, it obviously turns dark.
Well, I think that just that they had already established that character as like sounding kind of funny,
right?
Because he had been like he was the science guy, they called him.
Mm-hmm.
So like they had like given him like a funny kind of voice because he was the punchline for a bunch of jokes before that. But that was also after they established them as being good characters when that character was introduced, I think.
Right. It's just also, why does he have to die?
I mean, I don't know.
Characters die. yeah. I guess. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely.
I thought that scene, like I felt bad for him in that scene because we kind of liked them at that point, and that was also showing that like Jude Law's character is actually a bad guy. Like we haven't really gotten to see him. Like that's pretty soon after we've learned that like Jude Law has like massacred a bunch of the Skrull race, but we haven't actually seen it. That's like I think that's the first like murder that we see him commit once we've like realized that he's a bad guy.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, he also, he knows the jig's up kind of too. Like if they're like letting a decoy down there, I don't know. He doesn't have to like hide himself anymore. But yeah, I also kind of, I don't know. Part of me also kind of, it was just the whole kind of, I just didn't know again whether it was just something where I was trying to be like relevant like to today or like the Trump administration, or they really harped on kind of like the Skrulls are refugees. Like I was just kind of like, okay, like I mean, yes, they technically are. And and then I read something today, just so fucking I went down like a rabbit hole today before we started recording this. I was like, what? So I mean, that's cool. Like Skrulls are refugees, and it's like this anti-imperialist message, sort of. But then I was reading that Captain Marvel is like a tool being used by like the U.S. military as recruitment, like for like recruiting people. Like the film's like red carpet premiere included like testimonials from like Air Force men and women, and then they had a flyover by the Air Force, and then like in like 3,600 theaters or something, before the movie played, they had like U.S. Air Force presents origin story, and then they played like a short film of like women in like the Air Force and everything, and it was just kind of like, that's weird. And it was kind of like this trade-off for like, hey, we'll let you film here, but like we kind of want to like make some like touches in this movie and everything. And it was also just weird because like, it was cool. Like it was released on like Women's Day, March 8th. But then like also like a lot of articles were pointing that like on March 7th, like Senator Martha McSally testified that she was like raped by her superior officer in the Air Force, which again isn't like a totally rare occurrence in our military. I don't want to get off on that, but it was just like very weird. It was kind of like, I also sometimes got some like weird pro-military like kind of hoorah from this movie at some points.
I mean, that's rampant in Hollywood because in order to use their uniforms and their expertise and their props and stuff, like the military or the police, they always are like, well, let's take a look at this script and we'll make changes where we need them. And maybe you need to present the Air Force in a better light if you want to get these stealth fighter jets or these replica 1995 F-15s or whatever they use.
Right. And I mean, there's also, it's not like it was pro-war or anything. I mean, there's definitely like a plot line that's pretty anti-war. It's just kind of like, we need this to escape war. Annette Bening's character was inventing like the light speed to, stop war or whatever. It was just, I don't know. It was weird. And I mean, I know like the characters, like, the design of the characters, red, white, and blue. But it was just, when she changes like her costume red, white, and blue, and she's like, to match you. And I was like, who, the little girl or fucking America? Like it felt like a little more, it felt like a little more quaint when it was like Captain America, but this is like kind of like taking place in the 90s. So I was just kind of like, I don't know. It just a weird little rabbit
Our
hole.
costume's actually blue, red, and gold, Joe.
Oh man. Well,
So you're wrong.
yeah, I guess I'm off there.
But you feel like a real dummy now.
I do. I'm sorry, Captain America. Captain Marvel. But yeah,
I thought this movie had some like surprisingly touching moments and like pretty decent acting in it. For a superhero movie, at least. Like I particularly liked the like scene in the dining room slash kitchen of what's her friend's name? Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Is that her name?
Yeah, it is.
Maria Rambo.
She's got the name tag.
The necklace, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the reunion between those two was pretty touching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Maria's sort of going on her little monologue about like, yeah, it was like, you know, tough to do all that, but what was like even tougher was like saying goodbye to, you know, my best friend and all that, and like trying to help Carol remember who she used to be on Earth. Like I just thought the acting was really great, especially from Maria Rambo's character in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was some really great acting from Brie Larson as she's like sort of starting to piece together that she's Carol Danvers and she might have been on Earth. Like I really like when she like makes that call to Jude Law from the secret Air Force base.
Right. Yeah.
In the basement, and she's kind of got like some tears starting to form. It was all pretty nicely done, I thought.
Yeah, I love when superhero movies, or even Marvel movies, which just seem so soaked in just like espionage and fighting and military bases and airports and everything, when they can have like, even though Age of Ultron is arguably just the fucking worst, man. But like Joss Whedon has that. Is that the movie where Joss Whedon has that scene where they kind of take refuge at like Hawkeye's house or something, and you get to see everybody just kind of just be human for like a second in the span of like 20 movies, you know? And so I like when they have these kind of set pieces here, when they're kind of just, you know, it's with a family and it's, yeah, everything. I even like, they don't totally know what to do with Samuel L. Jackson during some of these scenes. Like he's just like eating pie in the background of a lot of these scenes. But even he has some like great lines too. I like him during this movie. I totally agree with like, I'm not a huge fan of the Nick Fury character, but you kind of, I don't know. It's he's okay in this movie. I'm not looking forward to him being in like the Spider-Man or whatever, the next one, because I loved just because like you can't replace like that Tony Stark, kind of like father mentor character.
Yeah, that would have been a lot better than Nick Fury.
Oh yeah. But Tony Stark probably dies in Endgame because his contract. So somebody else needs to step in.
Because he's been here for like all 21 Marvel movies.
Get me out! Yeah.
I thought I'm torn about how I feel about the Skrulls in terms of their visuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. Part of me is like thank God we didn't have like an entirely CGI race of aliens in this movie playing a big part.
Right.
And the other part of me is like the makeup's not that bad, and I usually tend to like when aliens are in makeup. Although the Skrull kid gives me the fucking EBGBs.
Oh yeah, that was super creepy.
Something about kids in alien makeup. Oh, he's fucking drives me bonkers. I was just talking about this during the Aquaman review, where they had the one like looked like the Zora character from Zelda, the like squid fish looking alien thing in Aquaman, and they had like the one that was like the teenager version
Oh,
of that
yeah.
species of aliens, and she just looked so creepy and goofy. And same thing with the Skrull kid in this, but like the adults look a little bit more palatable. I don't know. It's just like it's like the makeup doesn't necessarily look bad. It maybe even looks almost too human at times.
Mhm.
But I think like the bigger thing is that like the makeup seems like it's inhibiting the voices of the characters playing it.
Mhm.
Like it seemed like they took the audio directly from scene rather than doing some better like ADR
Yeah.
of the audio for that. So like especially like Ben Mendelsohn, who like already has a kind of like distinct voice, but like him in the Skrull makeup sounds so different from regular Ben Mendelsohn. Like you can just feel his like cheeks being weighed down by the pounds of makeup on his face. And that character, I don't know, I'm torn on, like I don't think they have a particularly amazing looking character design. But part of me is also like, well, props for not doing just CGI characters, because that also turns me off to watch. Like I felt like I was able to get in touch with them as real characters more without having them like be CGI'd. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any feelings about the Skrull
I mean, yeah,
visually.
no, I definitely have a similar feeling, where I mean they at least accomplish kind of this visual of they look like the bad guy, you know. And then I think like maybe when you try to make somebody look like the bad guy, and then I mean again you have that take a different form, like the kid or like a lot of those people like on the ship. It's kind of like, well, this is a lot to take in, kind of, you know. It's just kind of they're kind of already purposely ugly. That is also weird. Just when you start getting into the territory of like telling a makeup artist, be like, and now make sure like everyone knows this is like a kid and not just a smaller Skrull. Just like, and they're like, all right, well, like we'll fucking make it look like Sally Lou or something, you know, or
We'll make
whoever.
him chubby and smooth out the skin a little bit.
Right. My big thing about the Skrull was I think one of my favorite set pieces is that train set piece. I also kind of like when they're in the military base or whatever. That's pretty okay. But I kind of just wish they did more with the Skrull shape-shifting. Like if there were more changes or something, like if they did something like a little more creative, I would have been like, oh yeah, like because that's just like such a cool power. I love when they're coming onto the beach and changing into like the 90s women swimming. Like that was
I
cool.
thought they got a decent amount of gags out of it, because like they have when they show up on the beach and he starts morphing into the one and they both morph into the same one, and he's like, hey, get your own, this one's taken. Or I really like they kind of use the gag a few times, but when like they'll morph into someone, like on the train, he morphs into the one guy in the red shirt with the glasses, and then that guy sees himself and like has the most disturbed looking face, like what the fuck. I thought that was a pretty good like visual gag. I thought there was a lot in this movie that didn't feel like it was a global.
See, I was
type
literally
movie.
just about to say that's the reason they didn't have it switching too much, is to like make sure no one in America or especially like overseas was that confused. Like they really went in on
I
kind of
thought
like
there was like a few scenes where like if it had been like a global movie, they would have like really telegraphed some stuff through words rather than just through some of the visuals. Like it, like in the one, like I really like the elevator scene with Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn playing Sam Jackson's boss as the Skrull shape-shifting as him. When like Sam Jackson is trying to sort of like tease out of that guy whether he's the real one or not, and he's like, oh yeah, like, and we'll I'll get off on this floor and we'll do a pincer move like we did in Havana. And he looks at him like, yeah, like we did in Havana. And like we can just see in Sam Jackson's face like that he's not trusting this character, and we don't have to have him like really telegraphing like, I do not trust this character. You know, like that's just something that felt like if it had been like a movie that was made for global audiences, in the test screenings, they would have been like, well, this is just not getting across to the people in Japan, so we're going to have to insert something here to make it more obvious. Like, I think whenever you can have scenes that work pretty well without words, that's evidence of a movie that was actually made for an American audience rather than like purely a global audience.
Yeah, that's true. I do like that scene a lot.
Right, like it felt like a real movie rather than something that had been screen tested in studio to within an inch of its life.
Yeah. One of like the last kind of problems I have with this movie is that I again, like you were kind of saying like earlier, where it just kind of feels like scenes are kind of like cut out of this movie. There's just weird pacing, and I know they have to cover a lot of ground. And this movie is long, but it definitely was originally longer. But also, I feel like they've kind of, I don't know, they've just kind of like brought that to set when they started shooting it, where it's just kind of like, you know, this is how it plays out, kind of like it's just, there are these huge revelations that are happening during this movie. And people like aren't reacting like Samuel Jackson is like, oh my god, there's fucking extraterrestrial life that's like, and oh my god, there's like 2 different breeds of them, and they're on the planet and everything. Like they make it pretty clear that he doesn't know that like alien life forms exist. Yet he's kind of like, okay, like he's just kind of like, sure, like, you know, he's just like. That doesn't, there's never even like a small moment of just kind of like, holy shit, what am I dealing with now? And then he kind of just, and then like without a beat, he kind of like also just kind of shows up at the bar that Captain Marvel's at with no explanation. And then they take like turns doing like giant exposition dumps. And it feels like there's a lot of shortcuts taken in this movie that I feel like if this was just an actual just movie and not part of the superhero genre or part of, you know, a spanning like 20-something film series, like it would just be like, this is bad filmmaking. You know, this is not good. But it's just kind of it's like, well, you know, it's a Marvel superhero movie. Yeah. And it's just kind of like, they don't have time for that. My God. Endgame's coming. Why would you waste time on like human emotion, you know?
The most like egregious example of that is Agent Coulson when like, I mean, again, it's a scene that's in there for mainly just humor, but like they've both witnessed like 2 alien races for the first time. They've seen people like shooting crap out of their fists that's like exploding buildings, like these great big like plasma blast or whatever it is that comes out of Brie Larson's fists, in their minds at least. And then like, so like Nick Fury leaves with who he thinks is Agent Coulson, and then he gets a call from Agent Coulson, who's back at the Blockbuster, and he's like, hey, where'd you guys go? I'm still at the Blockbuster. And like Agent Coulson's, it's partially just the guy who plays Agent Coulson. He cannot deliver any lines without smiling. That's just his character is just smiling all the time. Which I guess is just why like people in the Marvel fandom like him, because they just think he's this cute old guy or whatever. Right. But like it does not convey at all the fact that like, I'm like just been introduced to extraterrestrial life for the first time. Like I saw all these crazy explosions, and now I've been left behind by like my partner on this mission. Like while I've been like introduced to all, like it was so like if you take a step back, you're just kind of like, all right, that makes really no sense whatsoever. And yeah, you're definitely right about like Nick Fury like showing up at the bar. Like he even literally says like, yeah, just like a typical work day or something as like a joke, but it's like, you know, you should be freaking out a little bit more,
right,
about what this day has entailed.
He just like rattles off like 2 trailer lines, kind of like, I don't know, you tell me, am I having a good day? Cut to like, just, and then I met into some space aliens, and it's just like it seems like it's cut for like a trailer or something. Yeah, I'm so glad. Again, I mean, like, as much as I like rolled my eyes when my theater like just really gave it their all to show the appreciation for that Blockbuster reference. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed kind of like the very small amount of 90s nostalgia, and I'm so glad they did not lean into that.
Yeah, there wasn't like a Tamagotchi or...
Oh, man. Yeah, we dodged a bullet there. I also was very concerned that they were going to try and do like 90s like Guardians of the Galaxy, where like everything would be scored with like 90s music, and they did that a lot. I haven't seen a single review that doesn't criticize the No Doubt song during one of the last fight scene.
I don't like No Doubt to begin with. I'm on like the minority on that one.
Oh, it's a very, I mean, that it's just like just a girl. It's too on the nose. It's very like manufactured girl power. It's not a good fight scene either. And there's just nothing working.
The music doesn't really fit the scene. It was one of those scenes where like the pacing of it felt like it had been cut to, and maybe it was, and the test screening just revealed that song's been used too much. But the Bad Reputation song.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I forget. I always forget who does that song. But I don't give a damn about my bad reputation. Like that would have been a good song to choose for that scene had it not been used like 50 million times in movies already at this point.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because it has that attitude of that scene and literally the pacing of that scene, whereas like the No Doubt like isn't really like a fight scene song.
This is strange, weird choice.
It felt like it was picked for the lyrics more than the lyrics in the time period, more than the actual quality of the song as a soundtrack.
Definitely.
I remember reading like negative reviews of this movie before I went to see it that were criticizing the color palette and saying like, oh, like it's like a space movie, but it ends up like taking place in like parking lots and like gray cement just as much as like old Marvel movies used to. And I kind of disagree. I feel like a lot of the space stuff, looks just as good as like Guardians of the Galaxy did. Like it looks like a Marvel that's learned its lesson and knows what types of colors to insert in these space things. Like you can't go too single palette. You can't make it look like Green Lantern. But it doesn't go as fully eclectic as like a Thor Ragnarok. Like it just looks like a really nicely saturated space movie. For a lot of like the Hala scenes. And then when they're on Earth, I can maybe see how someone might think that it's just because it's a little bit of a jarring switch coming from the space scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like grayscale or like gray washed. If anything, like it looks like they watched Top Gun a lot and like tried to match the like color grading of that. Like it's like a 90s color grading, but the scenes that they're in are mostly like desert settings, so that it has this like warm tone to it in a lot of it, and a lot of times they're like bumping up the warmness of the sun on the characters as well. So like I didn't really watch anything and feel like it was lacking of color or boring visually in that way. Like it felt like watching an 80s or 90s movie, which aren't really. They're not desaturated at all.
Right. I honestly didn't really notice anything. I think if I fell asleep watching one Marvel movie and woke up watching another, I wouldn't know that you had, switched DVDs or something. But I think that's also important because these are supposed to play out like, like a series. Like there has to be some sort of consistency.
Well, I definitely noticed a difference between early Marvel and later Marvel. Like they've definitely learned their lesson with a lot of color grading.
Oh yeah, Civil War was definitely the peak of just cement.
Yeah.
Color, yeah.
Which was also circumstance, but
Yeah, they also the airport fight scene. I still think that's such a bad that's such a bad location. Like it was like, of course everything's gonna look like cement when everything is cement. You know, like
Yeah, but I think they picked that based on where else can we find enough room to just like swing the camera around with literally nobody in it,
that's
and then
very true.
CGI them in later.
Yeah, and also have some form of like stakes. Like, oh, they might ruin an airplane. You know.
Oh no, the Boeing.
people
That
people
plane
might.
that's parked with nobody on it. They might be delays.
Why is nobody in the terminal? Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we're getting to the end of this review, but I feel like then we kind of retcon Captain Marvel as kind of this like the most powerful Avenger, which I think was kind of the point of this movie. Like, I feel like this movie was created so we can have somebody kind of come in and save the day in Endgame. But she's like basically God by the end of this movie. She's just cutting
female Dr. Manhattan.
right. She's cutting through spaceships like a hot knife through butter. But then also like that's good because it's like that's just like the last part of this movie and we build up to that. But like I get concerned for Endgame or just movies going forward that include Captain Marvel because it's kind of like, man, Marvel might get like a Superman problem. A lot of people have said that, but that's like the first thing I thought of when I saw her fucking cut through like multiple spaceships. It was just kind of like, what's her weakness? Or like what can we do with her kind of, and you know, like what makes any other character in Endgame like essential to what they're trying to get done. You know, and in Infinity War I feel like they did like a really pretty good job of just kind of balancing the characters and their abilities and everything. So I am curious to see how they use her in the next movie.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about Endgame because I think they've just established that like the whole Thanos thing is like it's just like stupid, insanely powerful. Like I don't want to get into a whole Endgame or Infinity War thing again, but I really liked in Infinity War just the whole concept of like him just kind of whatever he wants to happen he can make happen. Like he really just does kind of become a god in that movie,
Right.
slowly. You know, like when he has what's his face Star-Lord like pointing the gun at Zoe Saldana's character. I can't remember her name right now. And he's about to like kill her and he like turns the gun into like silly string or something. It like spirals out of existence. Like just like in like a really like cartoony way. Like that felt like real dark to me and made like everything just feel hopeless because it's like what there's no, we're beyond like Superman and Kryptonite at that point. We're to a character that is just making things happen just by snapping his fingers or thinking them. So I'm not too worried about Captain Marvel versus Thanos feeling overpowered in Captain Marvel's favor, because she's still operating in a reality that Thanos seems to have complete control over just with his thoughts and his mind. So I think whatever the conclusion to Endgame is will probably have to do with them outsmarting him in some way, which is fine. That's kind of what makes superhero movies more exciting. It's not just power versus power. It's oftentimes, you know, I have less power, but I'm a little bit smarter, or I have no powers now, but I can beat you without the suit or whatever it is.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. But I can definitely hear that complaint going forward after Endgame. Because then it's like, well, do they create another type of Thanos that's like that? Like, what? Yeah, how do you one up anything after Thanos?
Right. Or it's just...
I feel like they're going to have to go like super small scale after Thanos and just go completely in the opposite direction. And which wouldn't be horrible to just go like completely character driven.
Oh, definitely.
Superhero movies.
Right.
Because what other blue lights in the sky are there after Thanos?
Yeah. No, definitely. But yeah. I don't know. I also liked the I thought it was pretty visually stunning when she gets her powers. When it looked kind of. I, did you say Doctor Manhattan during this episode? It looked like kind of Doctor Manhattan-y with like the blue electricity kind of.
There was a bunch of stuff in this that like reminded me of a Zack Snyder film.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did a bunch of like super slow motion, like visual cinematic, like tapestry type scenes where like everything was perfectly arranged, a lot of colors going on, super like good framing for a lot of the scenes. It reminded me of Watchmen in a lot of the scenes specifically.
I also just hate that origin story that like a jet engine blew up next to her. She like absorbed the powers. I mean, I know it's almost.
I think in the original comics, it's
Right.
that like Captain Marvel herself
Okay.
gets destroyed, and the energy wave gets like fused with Carol Danvers. I don't think it's an actual like energy core that gets trapped inside her.
Gotcha. I was about to say it's almost as if there's like one person at Marvel just kind of like deciding how people get their powers. I don't think Stan Lee actually wrote Captain Marvel, but it's very like we talked about in Aquaman, where DC's very like you're born with these powers, and then Marvel's very these powers are kind of thrust upon you. And even like Marvel kind of has this pattern of just like what doesn't kill you, like a poisonous spider, or like an energy core blowing up makes you stronger, kind of.
Yeah, they definitely. I feel like I'm okay with stuff like that, but I feel like there should have been a negative side to it.
Yeah, that would definitely help.
There should be like she's got like these like crazy migraines at night or something, or there's a million different ways you could have gone with it to be like, yeah, she's got these incredible powers, but blah blah blah. Because I mean, like they don't even go in the direction of like with Dr. Manhattan, like he doesn't really have physical downsides. He just has the fact that like, oh, I can't fucking relate to anybody because I've been turned into a god.
Right. I mean, but he's also unrecognizable too. I mean,
yeah, it does change his physical appearance. He doesn't get to just stay Brie Larson.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've rattled off just about everything I could rattle off about this movie. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a bunch we didn't touch on, but I don't really have anything to say about it other than I really liked because there's a bunch of like twists in this movie. Like that was the one thing I told Rowan when I came home from seeing it. I was like, I think you would really like it. It surprises you in a lot of ways, but I can't really tell you a whole lot about it because I feel like the whole like last half to 3/4 of the movie or last quarter of the movie is just kind of like twist in a good way. Like there was stuff that just I had no idea was going to happen based on the trailers, and I thought all of that was pretty cool. Like from finding out that the Skrulls are the good guys and that Jude Law's character is the bad guy, to finding out how she got her powers. Like we all know for the first half of the movie that, you know, she is Carol Danvers. She was on Earth at one point. First, she was in the Air Force. Like they obviously, you know, let us know those facts about her, but I don't think I realized that like she got her powers from that experience. Like I thought that it was something that the Kree had given her, which I mean, shame on me because they reveal that in the first couple of minutes of the movie. So obviously they're going to twist that in some way, but you know, I'm just kind of following the movie as it's going. And I thought that the whole reveal of like her finding out her powers, I thought it was a cool twist. I thought that could have been maybe telegraphed a little bit more prior.
Yeah.
Just because I don't even really fully see her thought process in figuring that out. Like she's just kind of like in the meeting with the Supreme Intelligence, and like literally like seconds after the Supreme Intelligence is like making a reference to the thing on her back of her neck, like she ends up just being like, oh, and I've been fighting with one arm behind my back. Like it was a cool punchline and a cool idea. I just wanted like one or two like hints at that previously. I mean, I don't know if you caught up on any, since that's kind of your thing, is figuring this stuff out early. That twist, like, did you see anything in the movie that we were supposed to pick up on? Relating to that thing being a like restricting her powers rather than giving her powers?
No, not totally. They definitely give that. They definitely keep you, or successfully kind of mislead you or keep you in the dark with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I think I just wanted something in that scene itself.
Yeah.
That like Supreme Intelligence says something and she lets something slip in some way, and we see like a look from Brie Larson like, wait, that was kind of weird, and then she's touching the thing and thinking about it, and then it kind of clicks in her head and we see her expression change, and then she gets to be like, you know what, I've been fighting with one arm behind my back this entire time, and then she just takes it off and then lets loose. Like I just needed like a little bit of tweaking there for me, but all in all, I thought that was a cool fucking twist, and for her to just kind of go like ham after that was pretty cool. And then it just made like the rest of the movie kind of fun, because it was like it almost like I had a lot of comparisons in my mind to like The Matrix. I feel like that might have been a little bit of an inspiration for some of the parts of this movie. Just like the Supreme Intelligence, like it felt like talking to like Agent Smith, because it was just like in The Matrix, like isn't that the thing too, where like he's just a representation of something for people to talk to, since the what are they, the Sentinels, or I forget what the actual bad guys are called. The Sentinels are just one of the forms. Either way, it was like a representation of something that people could interact with in this like dream world thing. There's like kung fu in the beginning in like the sort of dojo thing with Jude Law's character and Brie Larson, and then sort of like figuring it, like it felt like Neo at the end of The Matrix, like seeing the code, right, and then being like, oh, like I can fight you guys, and this is no big deal for me. I can literally do it with a hand behind my back while I'm like yawning,
right, yeah,
fighting you. And that it was kind of like a punchline in how easy it became, and I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, all that was to say that just there's a bunch of cool twists at the end of this movie. And that's really all I have to say, is that they're good. I don't have anything to debate about them.
And Nick Fury loses his eye to a cat.
That kind of, I rolled my eyes with that.
It's a pretty
again, because
I
don't care about the Nick Fury character at all.
Even I didn't
pick up on it when they start making the first reference to it, when like someone's like, oh, like how's your eye, after like he gets his eye like punched in or whatever. And he's like, oh, it's fine. I was like, okay. That was like kind of a weird thing for someone to say, because I don't care. So I wasn't thinking about the fact that he's got the eye patch or whatever. And then after like the second or third time, you're like, oh, that's what they're doing. And then it just keeps going. You're like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a movie that felt like it was functioning very much on its own. I mean, despite having Nick Fury in it, but he functions as an actual character, an element of the movie, and not just an Easter egg. But that was definitely one of the moments that was like, oh yeah, we are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all of this is just to provide Easter eggs for fans to giggle at.
Yeah, it was just kind of like the whole, like, even at the end when he's kind of like making the Avengers initiative or whatever, and it's because of, Captain Marvel, or Brie Larson's character was getting into a plane, and it was like the Avenger or something, and I don't know, and she was kind of like, I feel like she's kind of like the first Avenger or whatever.
That's what I was thinking watching that. I was like, wait, is that her tagline, Captain Marvel, the first Avenger? And I'm like, no, that's Captain America.
Right, yeah. And I don't know.
The neckbeards are going to have a field day with this.
And then him just like writing like, oh, and like the Avengers initiative kind of felt like, I don't know. It just kind of felt like a movie saying, its title, kind of like at the end of a movie or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I guess, like, do we need like an explanation of like what Avengers means? Because you're not even really, like, what are they avenging? It's just like, it's just like, it's a cool name. Just leave it at that.
It was fine.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I really liked the, reading it now, it's the mid-credit scene. I didn't stay for the post-credit scene because I barely have the patience to stay for the first one.
Oh God, it was infuriating to stay for.
If there's two, I'm not staying for the second one. I'll read about it later. It's usually not as important. But I thought the mid-credit scene was pretty cool because it was less of an Easter egg and more of like just getting to watch an actual scene.
Yeah.
From this whole series.
Next time on the Avengers.
Yeah, like that. I don't know. Like it. I don't know. I hate when the mid-credit scenes are just kind of like, oh, and here's the next origin story you can expect. And this was, it felt more linear, and being like, and here's, connecting these sort of two worlds that you already knew that were going to be connected. It wasn't really revealing anything. It's not like we could have talked about it in the beginning of the movie and it wouldn't have been a spoiler. It was just getting to see these actual characters in a scene, for the first time since Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Or at least less uncool than the mid-credit scenes that we're used to.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't feel like it was being jammed down my throat. It actually felt sort of natural in the flow of this movie.
Also, then you wait like in eternity to see like the next after credit scene, and it's Goose climbing up onto like Nick Fury's desk, and then it like hacks up a furball for like a full minute, and then when it completely hacks it up, it's actually like the Tesseract. It's kind of like, okay.
Does that mean anything?
No, it doesn't. Like, we knew the cat had it and that was safekeeping, but it was just like, what? Yeah, okay. It was just kind of like, isn't the cat still funny? It was also like, I don't know. I don't really like understand what I thought Goose was like a clever name. Apparently that's not its actual name in the comics. And people were like, Top Gun's like not actually about the Air Force. It's about like the Navy. And like, I feel like a character like that wouldn't name the cat Goose. It just seems like pretty surface level, just
I thought
bad.
it was fine.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
the layman understands that it's a Top Gun reference and
right.
Like chuckles at it. I'm someone who has shamefully never actually seen Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
I just literally never got around to it. I understood the reference and chuckled at it.
Right.
So if I get it, then I think most people are going to get it. The common man is going to get it, and that makes it a good name.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anyway, let's get into some ratings, shall we?
Let's do it.
On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 78% based on 433 reviews and an average rating of 6.79 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, packed with action, humor, and visual thrills, Captain Marvel introduces the MCU's latest hero with an origin story that makes effective use of the franchise's signature formula. That's that.
And that's that.
I can go first.
Go for it.
Unless you're about to go.
No, I was just about to say, like, just another funny article I remember reading is like Annette Bening was doing like press for the movie or whatever, and I think she was like, I don't really understand the script. It was just kind of
They just told me what to do.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, I don't know. They seem like so far into the series that it's just kind of, it's like, my kids understand it.
I made the movie for my grandkids.
It was just kind of like, get that Marvel money, baby. Get the money and run.
Well, at least her character dies in it, so she doesn't have to
Yeah.
be in another one. Although I guess she might have to if Brie Larson's character ever talks to the Supreme Intelligence again. But
True.
anyway, yeah, like I've sort of said throughout the review, I didn't really have high expectations going into this. Not familiar with the Captain Marvel character. Usually my expectations are pretty low going into any superhero movie. I didn't think the trailer for this was particularly groundbreaking or interesting. I don't think I would have seen this, at least definitely not in theaters if I didn't have to for the podcast. But I found myself really pleasantly surprised. I was it got off to a little bit of a rough start, but I think it overcomes it pretty quick, and then it kind of grabbed me and took me from there. I started to really like the Carol Danvers character, or I guess maybe a better way of putting it is I really liked Brie Larson's performance, since I'm not totally sure what they were going for in every scene with Carol Danvers' character. But just, I don't know, I thought that the visuals were great in this, which is, something that is on like my checklist for a blockbuster or popcorn type movie. Like I there really should be no point in a movie like that I'm bored visually. And I don't think there was very many in this. I think a lot of like the scenes in like the first third of the movie are like incredibly visually beautiful. Just a lot of purples and pinks and cool space colors going on. That really grab your attention. I thought there was plenty of humor. I found myself laughing or chuckling, and I didn't find myself cringing that often. The big example just being the one Stan Lee cameo, but that was because I thought they were reanimating his dead corpse. And I thought the action was pretty cool. And again, like these are all just kind of like my checklist items for a popcorn movie. I want it to look good. I want to laugh. I want to enjoy the action somewhat. I feel like I definitely appreciate action scenes in movies less than the average man does. I tend to sort of check out during a lot of them, but I found myself actually engaged with a bunch of the action in this movie. And then I found myself actually touched at times. And I mean, that's definitely on like a relative scale, for it being like a superhero movie. But it still adds up to it being a very entertaining movie, at the end of the day. And I thought there were some great acting performances in it, again, relative scale, but I mean, I'm grading it according to the curve of what it is. And I thought there was a lot of twists at the end that worked. Like it kept me guessing. There wasn't any like real part of the movie where I thought that I had really had it cornered or figured out. And it didn't. It felt like its own movie. It didn't feel like an Easter egg fest. And like I said, I don't think it reinvents the origin story wheel at any point. But it also doesn't drop the ball either. And it was just fun. It kept me entertained the entire way through. It was able to kind of drag itself up from a negative perception in the first like 10 minutes of the movie into, I think I'll probably give it 3.5 fingers. Like it was well above average. It's my favorite movie of the year so far, but I've only seen 2. And it was one of the more enjoyable Marvel movies, I think. And I think you can also kind of compare it to Wonder Woman, in that like I think like Wonder Woman was flawed in a lot of ways, and I know I'm in the minority with that, where it just felt like it was in the bad half of superhero movies, below average, flawed in a lot of ways that superhero movies had already been flawed. And the only difference was just that there was a female protagonist. Whereas with this one, like I almost kind of wish like this had been like released before Wonder Woman, because I feel like it is the better movie to wear that mantle of being the first, even Wonder Woman wasn't really the first, but the first like huge, big box office breaking female led superhero movie. just because it's like it's built into the actual like script itself. Like I thought that was really nice, the way that they had the like flashbacks to her life of like her always standing up after all these examples of things happening to her, and working that into the climax. I think that made that even more powerful and touching. And I liked that there was a lot of like sort of knowing stuff in the script, like the one guy telling her that she like needs to smile more on the motorcycle, or the guy being like, oh, like, you know why they call it a cockpit, don't you? Like stuff like that. Like it felt like a middle finger to the people who would end up, giving it bad scores on Rotten Tomatoes without having even seen it. And it just made the whole sort of narrative of it feel essential, rather than like if you wanted to promote Captain Marvel as this important movie for feminism, for me that kind of makes sense, because it's literally part of the script, as opposed to like when that was going on with like Wonder Woman, like it was kind of like a meta thing rather than actually being inside or part of the movie itself.
Right.
So, I don't know. Kind of rambling at this point. 3.5 fingers for me. I thought it was good. Very entertained. Very much like.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. I still kind of find myself on the other side of the coin, where I was kind of found myself being like thankful that Wonder Woman came out before this did. Just because I don't know. I thought it was a more enjoyable movie. It felt like a little more accessible. There was definitely like I don't know, just people seemed to respond to it well. People definitely responded to this well as well. But just, on a personal level, I don't know. A lot of the stuff that was just kind of like men can't bring me down felt very ham-fisted and kind of just seemed, I don't know. It just, it just kind of seems like it, like all like kind of some stuff just seems like it's part of like, man, like, is this a part of like a feminist narrative, or is this a part of like a corporate narrative making money off of just kind of something that's like, I don't know, just politically correct, basically. It felt a natural, a lot of like the stuff that they kind of try to put in here, where it's just kind of like,
I mean, that's stuff that happens in everyday life, though. That was the thing that kind of made me angry about a lot of the reception to this movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's just a lot of movies, kind of, and it's just
like it's not really ham-fisting to have a scene where someone says like, "Oh, you need to smile more, sweetheart," when that's something that like every girl has said to her.
Oh, most definitely, but and I don't want to be insensitive or anything, but maybe instead of kind of signaling to, maybe it could have been more original dialogue instead of something that is cliched, because I mean, I can guarantee you it's been said in movies a lot with the same purpose. I don't think that makes this any more important per se, besides maybe it has like a wider audience. Which is still great, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to hone too far just on that point. Mm-hmm. I just think it's a more well-made movie than Wonder Woman. I kind of felt I was definitely checked out.
Wait, you think this is more well-made than Wonder Woman, or you mean
the other way around?
Sorry.
But yeah, it just kind of felt like it wasn't into the beginning, definitely. When, again, she kind of crashes into our world, I was a little more on board. And I think much like the movie, I was kind of like the only part of the movie I liked, which I think they were like fucking zooming towards kind of having this kind of like weird buddy cop movie between her and Samuel L. Jackson. And that's where they were just like blowing through details with just anything that would make this movie kind of like remotely like human, just reacting to details that are like happening around these characters and everything. I don't know. It was just like kind of like I'm so accustomed to the Marvel machine at this point that I'm just kind of like it kind of just felt like I was more so kind of sitting in on like a Marvel like Suits meeting than I did feel like anything remotely kind of creative was happening in this movie. It was kind of like, I know people, and like you especially, would crucify me for saying this, but like at least Aquaman had like some sort of like vision. It seemed like somebody's vision. This seems like it's kind of like, you know, like maybe the directors were given like, you know, 100 points to cover or something. It was kind of like, you got to hit all these points. And then like, you know, maybe we'll let you in the editing room and you can, you know, voice your opinion about what you think should, you know, where you think a cut should be or whatever. You know, it's just kind of like, I know this is all part of a fucking machine, kind of, or at least, you know, I feel so bad now. Every time I watch a Marvel movie, I feel bad about like slamming like DC movies. I'm like, God damn it. At least there's something going on there a lot of the time.
It's so weird because I feel the exact opposite. Like I feel like Aquaman was just, well, here's all these plot points you got to hit. Except the only difference was with Aquaman, it's not plot points for the greater good of the franchise. It's just for the movie itself. It's like, well, you got to go to this place, and you got to go to this place, and you got to go to this place, and this character has to be here. Like that's what this movie, like this movie felt like a movie to be its own movie. There's parts, you know, in the beginning that connect to parts at the end. Like I even thought there was a lot of like good elements to the script in this, a lot of good callbacks that bring things full circle and just make it feel like you watched something that someone wrote. So it's really weird to me that you would feel the opposite of that. I mean, I know you liked Aquaman, but
yeah, no, I don't know. See, when you talk about like this being like genuinely entertaining, and also, I mean, Marvel movies are Best Picture nominees now. I feel like they're you can't fucking. I think like there's less of a curve now. I think you have to have a little more like red ink or red pen, you know, used when looking at them. Even though I don't think I just didn't like this movie that much. I don't know, I don't know. Aquaman felt like a James Wan movie. It didn't feel like some like larger corporation kind of like breathing down the back of his neck, kind of, you know. And for better or for worse, I think it makes a fucking like hella goofy, but just like still like fun movie and everything. I think there was not a lot of fun in this movie. I think it was just completely washed of just like it. I don't know. And again, that's not that I don't think other people will enjoy this. I think definitely, if this looks good, definitely go and see it. But I don't think this was the movie for me. I don't know. Just there's quite a few things that went wrong, and I was trying to put my finger on it more near the beginning of this review. Again, love Brie Larson. I don't know if she's the best choice, or I don't know what totally went wrong. I think I'm gonna give this a 1.5 fingers though.
Jeez.
I think this is like literally the reverse score of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, you might. No, did you give it 3.5?
I don't actually.
You might have just given it a 3.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't feel like scrolling up to look.
Same.
Yeah. I don't know. I really liked it. I had a hard time. It was one of those movies that I watched out, and I was like, man, I kind of don't know how anyone would not like this. Like, this just seems what, like, I don't want to say blockbuster, but like, in that summer movie either, but like popcorn movies are supposed to be. Like, I went to see it like after work. I was in like a rush to fucking get there. Because the way my job works, I don't always know what time I'm getting out. And I got out a little later than I wanted to that night. And I was like, well, I don't really have much time left to see this. I got to go see it now. And I got to the theater like in a bad mood, not really excited about Captain Marvel at all. And then it kind of just like charmed me. And I left the movie like wanting to tell people to go see it.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's how I know it's like above average for me. Because usually with a Marvel movie, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. You'll probably go see it anyway. But like I came home and told my girlfriend that she would probably like it and that she should go see it with one of her friends. Because I'm not going twice.
Yeah, no, I actually had like literally the opposite. Where I went and I was pretty pumped, and I was kind of like, yeah, I like Brie Larson. I like kind of like where this is going. And then I saw it, and I came home, and Sabri was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "Not good." I think I was honestly at a lower score in my head at that point, but I've come around a little. So, yeah,
That's weird. It's like we're different people or something.
it's like one might say.
Oh boy! All right. Well, I don't think we have too much else to get into. Check out HowManyFingersPodcast.com for any of our links. Check out a review 2 weeks ago of Glass. Seems like a bunch of you already have. I guess we'll probably review Us next.
Mm-hmm.
So look for that in like 2 weeks.
And that comes out to 2.5 fingers between the two of us. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for doing my job for me.
Oh, no problem. I literally I don't know why I had to do that math, but I had to type that into a calculator before I said that out loud.
And then maybe, I think we said we'd do Dumbo the week after that, or 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, I think
I gotta
we're
look at it again.
see,
I feel like Shazam might come out during that time period as well.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see what the box office does between now and when we record those episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I think Us is definitely on the docket. I think it was the highest box office score of an original horror film. So it's
Ever?
Yeah, I think ever. And I think that's just because there's a lot of like, Stephen King novels and just other stuff based off of other properties. And this is the first, I think, just totally original, just written idea that made the most money in an opening weekend or something.
I saw like really depressing graphic that was showing all the movies that had topped the box office in, I guess it was the past 10 years or some sort of time period like that. And it was movies that had topped the box office for a weekend that weren't like a sequel or a remake or like something tied to like a franchise in some way.
Oh God.
And there was like 7 of them, and one of them was Happy Death Day, and I was like, oh my God.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
That was like the one that topped it the 1 week, and I think it only made like 29 million or something that 1 weekend. There just was nothing else out. It was depressing. I mean, it's cool. It's cool for us. I mean, that was kind of the point of the graphic, was like very few movies are able to do this that aren't a, franchise or sequel or remake or adaptation or something like that. There's very few just straight up original movies coming out. So kudos to us for being able to do it. But yeah, definitely very excited to go see that. I'm going to go see it on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it at some point.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Well, check us out then, and check out HowManyFingersPodcast.com, and check out all our other episodes and stuff. Enjoy your off week. I know we will. All right. Signing out for How Many Fingers the Podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
And we'll see you when we see you.
That we will.